One thing that we find in history through all the bloody gore and anguish and torture and torment during history, one thing that we find through all of that, that one little special thing that we find is truth. And that truth is more so hidden and revealed in the time prior to when we as aboriginals or native to the land were not able to read, because up under what they call the Lock and Key Act, if we were caught reading a book, we were murdered. Except the Bible, of course, because it was used as a tool to enslave us. So with that being brought to the forefront, if you really want some real, truthful, insightful books, study books that predate us when we were not allowed to read. Now, going into the book Anacalyptus, an attempt to draw aside the veil of the Satic Isis, or the inquiry into the origins of languages, nations, and religions by Godfrey Higgins, written in 1874, we find out some amazing facts that you will not be taught in the school systems whatsoever, and it is strictly based off white supremacy, or may I say Caucasian supremacy, because they're really not white, they pale skin, just keeping it a buck. Oh yes, it's about to get real truthful like. This truth is like digging through so much dirt underground. You got to go through all this dirt, all we will say filth. But buried up under that is something beautiful, which represents truth. Whether it be gold, rubies, diamonds, or whatever, something that's of value that can bring about a change. Now, what do we have here? Let's just see as we shovel away all this dirt and creep until this truth of something that is of value. The letters on many of these monuments appear as I have before initiated, partly of India and partly of Abyssinian or Ethiopic origin. And all these indubitable facts may induce no ill-founded opinion that Ethiopia and Hindustan were peopled and colonized by the same extraordinary race, in confirmation of which it may be added that the mountaineers of Bengal and Bahar can hardly be distinguished in some of their features, particularly their lips and noses, from the modern Abyssinians, whom the Arabs call the children of Cush. Now, we all know that Cush means black. So we should know by now that the original Arabs are black people. But let's keep it pushing. And the ancient Hindus, according to Strabo, differed in nothing from the Africans but in the straightness and smoothness of their hair, while that of the others was crisp or woolly, a difference proceeding chiefly, if not entirely, from the respective humidity or dryness of their atmospheres. Now, let me stop right there. That's debatable. To distinguish how their hair came about, one with the woolly and one with the smoothness of straightness. That's very debatable, because we have people like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that said the reason why we had bushy hair or the kinkly or kinky hair is because 50,000 years ago, a tribe member by the name of Shabazz took his entire tribe or families to what we call today Africa, which is a new name for it. One time it was called Timeria, one time it was called Akibalan, but back then, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it was called East Asia. Anyway, took him into the wildlife. He said prior to then, that part, nobody really dealt with it because of the animals and all that stuff like that. But he said that this this Shabazz man, this tribe called Shabazz, went into East Asia, today known as Africa, to conquer the wildlife. And in the process, because of the climate, their hair began to change to this kinky hair. But anyway, that's debatable. But we're gonna keep it pushing. Hence, the people who received the first light of the rising sun, according to the limited knowledge of the ancients. What the hell they talking about limited? Are said by Apelius to be the Ari and Ethiopians, by which he clearly meant certain nations of India, where we frequently see figures of Buddha with curled hair, apparently designed for a representation of it in its natural state. Well, how about that? Aren't we used to seeing Buddha as some big Chinese looking guy, big fat chunky Chinese looking guy? This is the images that have been painted. Seems to me that every race on the planet paints the original in their own image. Let us continue to prove these allegations. I can confidently affirm there is not a syllable of truth in the orthographical derivation for Krishna, nor Krishin, nor Krishna, as to serve a worthless cause. Subversive of civil society, he artfully perverts the word, has not the least approach in signification to the Greek word Christos, anointed in allusion to the kingly office of the Hebrew Messiah, since the appellative simply signifies, as we shall presently demonstrate, black or dark blue, and was conferred on the Indian god solely on account of his black complexion. Now, sticking to the highlighted format, it reads, on the first view, it seems rather an extraordinary circumstance that the statue of the gods of the ancients should be represented of a black color. Oh yes. Or that they should have been made of a stone as nearly black as it could be obtained. Where the stone could not be obtained quite black, a stone was often used similar to our blue slate, of a very dark blue color, the drapery of the statue often being a different light-colored stone. It is evident that the intention was to represent a black complexion. Of this there can be no doubt. This is Garfield Higgins, written back in the 1800s, coming out of his book Antiquity. Now let us continue to push forward through all of the grit, all of the grind, so that we can see everything for what it truly is once it's in its original state. The marble statues of Roman emperors are often found with the fleshly part black and the drapery of white or some other color. Eusebius informs us, on the authority of Porphyry, that the Egyptians acknowledge one intellectual author or creator of the world under the name of Sinef, if I'm saying that right, Sinef, and that they worshipped him in a statue of human form and dark blue complexion. Now, with all of this being written, why isn't none of this taught in school systems? None of this. Why are we living a lie? We are literally being lied to every day when it comes to history in the school books of who the real original gods have been depicted as. We've been born into a lie. When they say you're born into sin, yes, in a way we have been born into sin, because we were robbed of 12 DNA strands, only born with 2. But on the flip side, we were born into sin because we were born into a lie. We're going to keep it pushing though. Mr. Krieger observes that the images of Krishna and Buddha are so similar that it is difficult to distinguish them. In the group pictured, let's say above, I'm going to throw a picture in so y'all can see some, is acknowledged by Moore in his Hindu pantheon to be applicable to Buddha on the knee of his beautiful mother, Maya. But yet, there is one circumstance of very great importance which is particular to Buddha and forms a discriminating mark between him and Krishna, which is that he is continuously described as a Negro, not only with a dark complexion, in which he agrees with Krishna, but with woolly hair and flat face. Mr. Cresor observes that the black Buddha with frizzled or curled hair attaches himself at the same time to the three systems into which the religion of India divides itself. Mr. Moore, on his woolly hair, says, some statues of Buddha certainly exhibits thick Ethiopian lips, but all woolly hair. There is something mysterious and unexplained connected with the hair of this and only of this Indian deity. The fact of so many different tales having been invented to account for his crisp woolly hair is alone significant to excite suspicion. Oh yeah, let's dive even deeper. We're going on our ocean this time for that truth. Athenia says that Susan was a Greek word for lily, and that the name of the city Susa meant the city of lilies. This is very remarkable, as it was the capital of the Cushites, or Ethiopians. Oh shit. But the lotus of the Nile and Ganges was, I believe, dark blue, which sometimes was the color of Krishna. But he was as often black as blue. He is perfectly black in the India house.
They told you that this is what the Arawak looked like. Or the Amerindians. Right? Anyone ever seen any Jamaicans looking like this? You know why? They never existed here. They want you to think that that's what the Arawak looked like, because they don't want you to know that this is what they look like. These are the original Amaru Khans. These are the original Olmec sheep. These are our ancestors. These are called the Olmec colossi. Colossi from colossal. And these are massive stone carvings of white people. I mean, this guy looks pretty white, right? This is a white dude, right? No? No. Okay, well, okay. These are black people. And they're carved out of one solid piece of basalt rock. Basalt is the second hardest rock on earth. First hardest is granite, which is what the pyramids are made out of. And they've dated these at these heads, and they estimate that they're somewhere between 16,000 to 20,000 years old. Stop and think about that, beloveds. 20,000 years ago, a race of black people excavated massive granite rocks out of the mountains, basalt rocks, and then etched themselves into these rocks. What kind of technology would they have had to be able to do this 20,000 years ago? Because it wouldn't have been a copper chisel. Alright? And I like this slide. Just a comparison. Here's a white dude, and here's a white dude. Right? So we were certain that the Olmec were white. Okay. These depictions weren't just depictions of ourselves. Because if you think about it, I'm not sure why it would be necessary to carve yourself into stone like that. These were actually depictions of our gods. But that's a powerful statement, isn't it? That the depictions of the gods look just like the people. You see what I'm saying? Okay? Historically, every ancient culture always depicted their gods to look like themselves. There's a reason it says in the book that the Creator created man in His image. That means your God must have looked like you. And since there's 5 billion black people on the planet, I would like to believe that a black God created me. I'm just saying. So those are the Olmec colossi, and as I said, they're depictions of the black gods. And the people were the builders of civilizations. They were not primitive. Primitive people couldn't do that. And like our Kemetic ancestors from Egypt, our Olmec ancestors engineered entire city complexes, thousands of years before Europeans crawled out of their caves. Historians have nicknamed the Olmec the mound builders. They call them mound builders because they built these megalithic structures all over the Americas. This is the Pyramid of the Moon.
We don't know why God created the white man. We don't know. I'd like to find out, but we don't know.